Welcome back to Friends in Austin. Today I've got Amir Neubach on the podcast, and he has a band or is in a band called the Genders. Is it the Genders?
The Genders.
The Genders. I was going to ask you that before the podcast because I've seen the name of your band so many times, and I'm like, is it pronounced the Genders or the Genders?
Hey, pronounce it any way you want.
Okay. So we met because a while back, you used to give me guitar lessons, and you were great, but I've just kind of gotten lazy, and I'm not really playing much guitar anymore. But that is how we met, and that was what, 2 years ago, a year, at least a year ago, if not more.
Way more than a year. It was just over 2 years, maybe even 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I think it was 2017.
Okay,
might have been 2018, but it's definitely 2 years ago.
And you're a great teacher.
Thank you.
I thought you were a really cool person too when we met and stuff like that. I really appreciated your teaching and your guitar playing and everything else. It was awesome. So the Genders, you guys made like what, top 10 Austin rock charts or something recently?
It's not Austin Rock Chart.
Uh-huh.
It's Reverb Nation, and you know what? I'm gonna expose the Reverb Nation scam to you if you want. You know what Reverb Nation is? We're now number 20 something on the Austin chart. It really doesn't mean anything. It means, and I actually know who the owner of Reverb Nation is, and if he's watching this or listening to it, I hope you don't get mad at me. But here's the scam. It's not about how good you are. Nobody decides what the chart is. It's not sales. It's not anything. It's pretty much how active you are on the internet is how you get charted. So if you just made like 40 new likes on Facebook on your page, and you got like 50 new subscribers on your YouTube channel in the same week, you're going to skyrocket in the charts.
Gotcha.
So what I started doing is I started just being very, very active, and I didn't even do it to chart Reverb Nation. I haven't been checking it. Suddenly I got an email. You just broke the top 40. You just broke the top. And you look at the stats, and that's why. It's because you just had 15 new likes this week, or this month you had like 100 new subscribers or whatever. It's just about being active.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we're making headlines in Austin other ways, which is great. We're getting a good following. The Reverb Nation thing, I just use it to, it's a good way to post something online and boast about it. We just broke the charts.
Yeah. So
sounds good.
Y'all have been at this for a long time. I saw. And you've gone on tour. You play a lot. You play frequently in Austin, but in addition to that, you've gone on tour and stuff like that.
Yep.
I want to take.
It's been a while though.
Yeah, because of COVID. And
not really.
On tour. It's been a while since you've been on
yeah.
tour. Okay. Yeah.
Because life happened.
Mm-hmm.
Touring is rough, man.
Yeah, and I want to get more into that later. But first, like, you were born in Jerusalem, right?
I was. Yes.
So. And I don't know the whole backstory behind really you that much. So you were born in Jerusalem. Can you tell me, how you came from, there to here, and at what age and why?
Well, that'll take up your whole podcast if I go I go deep in. So I'm going to give you the Clef Notes, the short version. I was born in Jerusalem, in what people like to say, politically correct people like to call it West Jerusalem. Whatever. It's one city officially, but it's kind of divided into all kinds of different neighborhoods. I was born in, let's call it, the more Jewish side of Jerusalem. How about that? And my parents, they went off to England for a few years. I was living there with them. Then they came back. Then gonna cut 20 years of all kinds of stuff happening there, and I moved to the States. I think it was 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on and off, going back and forth for about 22 years now. Been from 98 till now.
Why? How often back and forth?
Well, there's been spells where I went back to Israel for a whole while, and that was when actually the Genders formed when I was back in Israel for the birth of my first boy, my first son. My daughter was born in the States, and she's 17 now. but my son was born in Israel, and I went back for that, and then formed the band there. But the first thing I wanted to do is once we had the album ready and out, I wanted to go back and tour the States. We did that for about 3 years, just pretty much going back and forth, coast to coast, a little bit of just East Coast, but a lot of touring between 2005 and 2008, about maybe 7. There was about 4 or 5 tours, just,
So what's a tour like? I mean, you got the band together. Well, one, how did you get the band together at all? Where did you find your bandmates and everything else?
That was in Israel. The first there's generations of the band, and I'm pretty much the only one who's solidly left in the band. But legacy members are still around. The other main character, named Ofer, he's back in Tel Aviv. Pretty successful musician. He's got a studio. We recorded the first album and the last album, the fourth. We recorded that together back there at his studio.
So Tel Aviv is in Israel.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the main town.
You formed the band in Israel.
Yeah,
and
with
then
Israeli guys.
All of you came to the United States.
Yeah, we came to the United States, and every tour, on average, somebody quit the band. So I had to hire a new guy. Well, it wasn't a hire. We weren't making a lot of money back then. But that's how I don't know. That's how I say it. But get another guy in the band. There was girls in the band too. Originally, we wanted to have a mixed gender band, and our first drummer was actually a pretty famous, successful musician back in Israel by name of Sharon Cantor. She was the original drummer for about 5 minutes, but that didn't pan out for some reason. I don't know. I liked it, but I'm not going to get into that. That's another podcast right there.
Yeah,
interrelationships between band members and their potential girlfriends and other band members.
It's a hairy situation.
Oh my goodness, I could go into that. If we get there, it'll be interesting.
Okay. Well, you
said
can go
think
into
of
it a little
funny
bit if you
stories. I got a lot of, they could be perceived as funny. After 10 years, they can be funny.
Well, you want to hit me with one now?
Well, yeah. The once I name names, it's kind of weird because I don't know how famous this podcast is going to be. It might get me into a lot of trouble. I never assumed something is only just going to stay in the little Austin scene. I'm thinking maybe somebody back in Israel is going to watch it and make it like blow up, and then I'll be, oh no, Amir, why did you spill the beans on that?
Okay, well, I don't want to get you in any trouble.
But I'll just not name names from now on.
Okay, don't name names from now on.
And then it's all, plausibly deniable, right? Plausible deniability. I didn't mean that. That's a different story.
So
and
how
then
do
I go, oh yeah, you know what? That's kind of similar to your story. It's not what I meant.
So how do you go about going on tour in the United States? You got this band together in Israel. You guys all...
The first one was the toughest. Once you get the first one going, then you're better off. And actually, I just read, have you ever read, do you know who Amanda Palmer is?
No.
American singer-songwriter. She started the band Dresden Dolls back in early 2000s. And I was never into that band, but I read her book, and I pretty much I've never heard her story before that book, but I pretty much followed the same kind of route. They called it do it yourself, but it's actually not do it yourself. It's just kind of use the people who are in your scene, who are kind of supportive of what you do. Well, not use them, but use their willingness to help. So what I did was from Israel, I was emailing all these bands that I found on MySpace and YouTube. I don't think YouTube was around even.
And MySpace was really popular for music for a time.
It was the number one. Yeah. And there was this website called, are we allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
All right. Book Your Fucking Life. BY FL, bookyourfuckinglife.org. And it was like a punk rock DIY, book your tour, find other bands, find venues. And I used that, and I used MySpace to contact all these bands that I liked, and they would check us out, and they say, yeah, man, you guys rock. And I was like, you guys rock. Yeah, let's do a show together. All right. So and then they would do it. They would book the show, and sometimes they would say, yeah, you guys can crash at our house. We got couches, and, we brought sleeping bags, and there was never talk. Not during the first tour, never talk of sleeping at a hotel or anything. Everybody was like, all right, we're gonna rough it for a couple of weeks, like 3-4 weeks of roughing it up, and then the next tour is gonna be better.
Mm-hmm.
And they gradually did get better. The first tour I rented a minivan. We were a trio. We brought our own instruments. Uncannily, we brought our own drums. It's a very weird kind of, we put all the drums together in one. Imagine the bass drum, right? And then this is how like drums get packed when they leave the factory. You take all the heads off and you put them one in the other. Mm-hmm. And then you put the heads separately on top of that. So you can pack the whole drum set inside the bass drum case. And we showed up at the airport with the bass drum cases, and we're shipping this to America. And it goes, no, that's overweight, man. And so, we talked, I don't know how, but we talked them down. And I brought an amp too. That's crazy overweight. We talked them down to maybe charging us like $50 for the whole thing. I don't remember how much. It cost us some overweight, but we shipped all our amps and our drums the first tour. And then subsequent tours, we kept some of that gear in storage at some friends' houses and whatever. And eventually I bought a van, and you grow a little. But the first tour was just really
really roughing it.
It was roughing it on one hand, and on the other hand, it was like, let's just do it and let the chips fall where they may. It was brave, It was like, what if the airport says, no, you can't ship the drums? It's too big. We can't fit that in the plane. What if? I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
I just showed up and did it.
You don't know what even to think about. Yeah, because you got to do it.
Yeah, the shows are booked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bringing the drums.
Mm-hmm.
And, in hindsight, I could have probably on the first tour just said, hey, can we just use your equipment? But there was something kind of telling me that when a band shows up and they don't have their own gear, that looks unprofessional.
I see where you're going with that.
I wanted to make an impression as we're the genders, we're rock and roll badasses, we bring our own gear and it's all great and it sounds great. And, and we show up on time, we're professionals, but we're going to rock your socks off and then party all night and hang out and steal your girlfriend and take her with us on tour, which has or hasn't happened.
Yeah.
I'll deny it.
So you weren't married when you first started?
Oh, I was.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah, that ruined the first marriage.
That
tanked the first marriage.
Okay.
The touring tanked the marriage.
Yeah. Well, so how long were you on tour when you came over here for the first 2 or 3 times? How many months or weeks or whatever?
Into Austin or to the U.S.?
The U.S.
Well, the first time I arrived in the U.S. was way back in the 90s, and I didn't have the band. I was like an ex-member of a really big metal band that I was in. I think I told you about my metal band, Salem, notorious, like proto-black metal band. We were never a black metal band, but a lot of black metal bands were kind of, I wouldn't say inspired by, but we were kind of a known influence in the European black metal scene.
What qualifies as black metal? I've never heard that term.
Well, you have to be a Satanist.
Oh, okay.
Which I dabble in, but not in the black metal way. I'm not a Satanist. I'm just I would say that I appreciate the occult, and I like to read about it, and I'm entertained by it.
All right. Yeah. So what things about Satanism did you find what interesting?
That's the funny thing about graduating, quote unquote, from the metal world. Because I started out, my love affair with music was not did not start with metal, but I did get into like, I kind of got into metal through things like Iron Maiden and which back then was extreme metal. Like in 1985, Metallica was just starting out. Iron Maiden was like the hardest core metal that you could find like at the record store. Maybe in 86, 87, Metallica became huge, and you started to see like thrash metal.
Mm-hmm.
But then death metal started to show up, and then black metal, which was like death metal, but recorded really on really crappy material, on a crappy equipment, and everything's about the devil. So I gradually kind of got bored of all that metal, and you know, my band was a metal band, so I kind of pulled the band towards something that was less metal and more, I don't know what. And so when I split with the band, which was not because I wanted to split with the band, it was because of all kinds of record company issues. We were actually on the cusp of being, we were signed to a label, and we were on the cusp of being one of those bands that, you know, pre-sale was 200,000 copies of CDs before the album came out, and the tour was already booked, and we were going to be like a huge band, but we're not going to get into why, but we didn't sign the deal.
Mm-hmm.
The deal blew up, and the band blew up, and I said, you know what, I'm done. If we're not going on tour in Europe and, you know, doing everything that was planned out, I don't want to stay here in Israel a day longer than I have to, because I was in the army. I just got out, and I was just ready to, you know, flex my muscles and, you know, spread my wings and do something in the real rock and roll world, and not in Tel Aviv, which was like, you know, there's, even to this day, when the Genders do a show in Tel Aviv, which we not frequently, but like the last one was 2018 when I was there. We did a show, and there was like 300 maybe people bought tickets to see the band, and that's huge. Even in Austin, what band has 300, you know, ticket buyers come to their shows? And that wasn't even the biggest one. We had people buy 500 tickets at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a big name band in your country of origin, but you can't play every night. If you play every night, it's going to dwindle down to 50 people, which is exactly what happened to the Genders in Tel Aviv. It was I wanted to play more and more, but you can't really, even if it's once a month, you can't really do that.
Those people, like, they go to a show, they don't want to go to a show again the next night or a week later. Like, they go to
not even next week. It was like, all right, we've been to the Genders show, and then we've been to about 3 of them. I'm done. You know, I'll wait another year till I see this band again. And I get it. I mean, if I were in Tel Aviv, because I would go see my other friend's band, you know, the scene is too small for all these bands to exist. So there's enough bands for a whole continent, just in one city of maybe, I don't know, 2 million people.
Okay.
It's not enough.
Yeah. So how did you land in Austin?
That's another touring story.
Do you want another one of those?
Sure. I never say no to beer, man. But no, you don't have to stop the podcast for it. I can answer it while you do that if you want. Because batteries running out. Cheers.
Cheers. All right.
So we're back to the Austin story.
Yeah.
When I first hit Austin, it was during, I think it was the second tour, because the first tour we kept it to the East Coast. I was being modest, you know. Think about just start in New York City, go up to, I don't know, we went to probably Boston, and I think went all the way down to, I don't remember where, but it was all the East Coast. We did some Ohio, some Philly, some Kentucky, some Virginia.
Kentucky, huh?
Those are the best states, man. Ohio, Kentucky, Philadelphia, Maryland. Baltimore is one of my favorite towns in the world. I would be living there if there was a better music scene, and if it were, I don't know, if it were possible to make a living out of music like it is in Austin.
Yeah.
I would probably.
So
It was my other choice.
what
And
about
maybe
Nashville? What about Nashville versus Austin? Like,
It
I
was
know
never a choice for me, because rock music is, and I think I might have been wrong, because now that I see what's coming out of Nashville, the bands that are coming out, there's a lot of great rock music coming out. And I could probably, if I cut it as a sideman in Austin, which I was doing that for a while, I could probably cut it as a sideman and a side person, I should say. In Nashville, same thing, play rhythm guitar, play bass. But I think as a vocalist and as a band leader and as the genders, I think what we do is more of an Austin sound than it is a Nashville sound. If we try to do an original band night in Nashville, I'm not sure. I haven't tried yet. Never played in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Anything we did in Tennessee was always like Knoxville, Memphis. What's the other town? Never Nashville.
Yeah.
Never been there, so I don't know. But here's my Austin story. So this was the second tour, and we were going coast to coast. And I didn't mention, but we have non-biological family in Austin, which is very, very close friends of my parents, and then close friends of mine. And I knew that anytime I came to Austin, they would be offended if I didn't come and stay at their house. And they had a big house. They gave us a whole floor and with rooms. It was like, Austin was like the day off of not sleeping on, the night off of not sleeping on couches, but having your own bedroom. You could close the door and have, a good night's sleep in your own bed and take your own shower, which is like not wait in line for 20 other people who crashed at the party. So that was one very, very good incentive to go to Austin every time. But then when we played, and we were playing at this was the place we kept coming to. It was Trophies Bar and Grill, which is nowadays, it's on South Congress. Nowadays it's called Seaboy's Heart and Soul. And they even kept the Trophies sign. And when I came back and I saw it, it didn't register that it was the same place. And I saw the sign and I said, oh, crap, this is Trophies. I had chills, because we played there about 3 times, and every time it was better than the time before. Back then, South Austin was the hood. It was rough looking.
I've heard that. Like, there used to be prostitutes coming down South Congress. That San Jose hotel, she's been trying to do a documentary on that. I still don't know if she's released it, but when she bought it, the lady that owns it.
If you know that person who wants to do the docu, I can totally add some color to it about those nights at Trophies Bar and Grill. Yeah.
So she used to have just a bunch of drug addicts and stuff staying in the San Jose hotel, which doesn't mean much to people who don't know what it is, but it's like a pretty nice, really nice hotel.
Now it is, right?
Yeah,
everything's nice now. But you know what? This is the great thing about Austin that I can mention. After it's been, and I've been around since the early 2000s. I don't know anything about Austin in the 70s and 80s other than what people have been telling me. My friends who are a little bit older, who are part of that, who were part of that 80s, early 90s Austin music scene, they tell stories. But I've seen it in the year 2000, maybe 3 or 4 for the first time as a musician coming in. And it's changed so much, but it hasn't changed in a kind of commercialized, cheesy kind of, like Hell's Kitchen turns into, what do you call it in New York?
Manhattan?
Yeah, it's all commercialized, and it's all like Mickey Mouse and M&M's. I'm talking about Times Square, where it used to be like the center for prostitution and the budding kind of gay prostitution thing. And it was the seediest place and the coolest place in town. I mean, songs were written about 42nd Street, the Deuce, and it was where the New York Dolls started. And now it's all like, it's M&M store, and maybe the Lion King is on Broadway, and Austin hasn't changed that way. A little bit, yes, but it didn't go full commercial on you. It stayed kind of true to its roots. It's a little bit more, I hate this term, but I'll call it gentrified, because there's kind of like that vibe where people are like West Coasty, if that's the word. Let's all be vegans and color our hair green.
Yeah.
And end every sentence with a question mark, which I just did. But other than that, Austin is kind of still true to what it was. It's an island of being.
It's hippie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fairly hippie.
And that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I think it's a good thing.
Because even the kids are kind of hippie.
Yeah.
And not in the Portland way. I can compare every city to every other, because I've been to pretty much all of them, and I know Austin is the right place for me. I can't say it's the best place in the world, but it is for me. That's why I picked it out of all the other places, because there's something about this town.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there's some kind of aura of goodness, and they don't call it the live music capital of the world for nothing. That's why I have faith in this town coming out of this COVID thing and going back to not 100% normal, but 95% normal. People are going to go hang out at bars, and there's going to be a live band at 90% of the venues that there were.
Well, I think it'll go back to 100 after there's a vaccine and it's been distributed.
I'm knocking on wood right there.
I mean,
I'm with you.
This isn't a 10-year forever. I mean, maybe 3, which I doubt.
I completely agree.
Yeah, it's 1 to 2 years, things be back to 100%.
And I hate those people. I don't hate them, but I hate them when they say things are never going to be back. This is the new normal. Now everything is going to be like that. Don't say that. You're just making it happen by saying it. Just say something like, we need to fix this problem and steer back to the route that we were on. It was good.
People are going to want to go to bars again. Nothing about human nature has changed. People are just scared right now. This is all very new. I mean, no. In 6 years from now, we're not going to be wearing masks at bars. People are going to be around each other.
It's not even the masks. When they start talking, you know what? I wouldn't mind if everybody had masks on, but everything else was the same. I would go with that. They would make up a mask that's like, I don't know, or even not a mask. I don't know what they'll make up. But when they tell me about drive-in concerts, I laugh. You can't do that. And even the live streaming. I do live stream. I have done it. I'll do it in the future. But it's just not, it's not even in the same ballpark as doing a real live concert with an audience that is looking right at you, and you look right back at them. It's never going to be the same.
No, it's not. It's different. So let's get into that a little bit. You make money doing music, right? So
I used to.
Yeah. So
I hope I can get back to that.
So you hit this point where this thing happens, and you put many years of your life into being a musician. You started in Jerusalem, you came to the United States, you went on tour here, you've had this ongoing band with different members.
True.
You're here and you're doing your thing, and things are going pretty good. And then all this happens. So like, how has that made you feel, like, mentally about what's going on, and how tough has that been on you and your family?
It's good that you're asking it now and not about 3 weeks ago, because I was feeling like this was personal. It's like I got to this point, and it took a long, long time, just like you said. And I have a family, and I have kids, and I just bought a house, and I got mortgage, and I got bills, and I was right there, making it's not even a comfortable amount of money, but it was enough.
It's a living
for
on
everything.
Music.
Yeah, for everything that I needed, including all the organic food and all the
hippie bullshit.
All the hippie, mumbo jumbo that my wife likes. Hey, baby. and I love her for it, and we're keeping her healthy with that, and so that's good. She needs it, and we got a kid, and he needs what he needs, and we were doing everything. We were getting everything, all the ducks in a row, but you can't if you stop for a month or two, and you go into your savings. We were lucky that we had some, and that runs out. It's panic time. What do you do now? I did apply to all the grants, and I've been very, very blessed and privileged. I'm using that word. That's like a dirty word nowadays, but you say it thankfully. I'm privileged to be receiving all these grants that have kept me alive, and my family. And I just got an okay from another grant now. It's like artists who are serious artists who can prove that they are, that have the, whatever, the biography to back it up.
Track record, yeah.
This country, here's something controversial. This is a great country. You know what? It's always been a great country. You don't need to make it great again. And you don't need to keep it great. You do need to keep it great. But I'm not going to say, politics. I'm not an American citizen yet.
We're lucky to live here. Are you
but
not
we
an American
are.
citizen
I'm
yet?
not.
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
Crazy, dude.
Yeah, everybody needs to say, hey, Amir should be an American citizen. I need about 1,000 likes on that post and send it to the USCIS. And
my RA in college is from Colombia, and I remember the day that he got his citizenship, and he was so happy. I used to take him shooting with me out in the backyard in bumfuck Indiana. We shot at my neighbor's place, and he's like, dude, I don't think your neighbor liked me because I'm brown. But anyway, he was just, for me to see him and see how happy he was to become a U.S. citizen, it makes you like what I would take for granted. I was born here. It's like, and people that shit on this country, yeah, things need to be better. But at the same time, it's like, you should feel super fucking lucky that you were born in the United States. And don't you ever forget.
People talk about white privilege.
Yeah.
I talk about American privilege because being here is a privilege, bro. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. You're privileged to be here. From that point on, deal with your problems. Everybody's got problems. And I'm not saying that the things are not real. They are real. But I'm just saying, from my eyes, coming from a different place where things are not even close. And even my country of origin is a privileged place from that area of the world. So there's degrees of privileged countries, right? And this one pretty much takes the cake. So just being here, take a deep breath, everybody, and say, I'm in America. It's all good. Nobody's going to snatch me from my house and disappear me for a year, and nobody's ever going to see me again. Is this live?
Yeah.
You're getting live responses?
No. I had it muted, but then I needed to listen to something. I forgot about it. But I love what you're saying. You're right. I feel like there's just a lot of like lack of appreciation of
except for what's going on in Portland. I did hear that some people are getting disappeared. So watch out for that. That's not good.
I mean, yeah.
Don't let them do that.
You can still disappear, but I mean, you just there's so much opportunity here. I mean, just your base level of what you get to start out with is you have a lot to work with.
What you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I came out here, I didn't have a lot in terms of, like money in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at, all right, these are the options. I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can start this, I can put out my website and send some feelers. Maybe I can get somebody to hire me to play at their wedding. Maybe I started out doing that. When I moved here officially in 2016, the last time, excuse me. That's the downside of drinking beer.
Yeah, I've been doing it.
Burpy.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Miller Lite. This is Michelob Ultra. I've been the poster boy for Miller Lite on 6th Street, at least.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of 6th Street work. That's a good time to say, you know what? A lot of people rip on 6th Street, and I have nothing but good experiences on that strip.
Dirty Six.
I'm going to include Dirty Six. I'm going to include a little bit of that Congress area and 5th, where Antone's is, and it's a small little strip, and If you're booked, if you're double booked, and you can just hop from one bar to the other. For me, it's like Hamburg for the Beatles. I love that. You can play rock and roll in one venue and then take an hour off, move all your crap, and go to the other venue and just keep playing. And they'll have you for 3-4 hours, and they'll pay you, and you'll make some tips. And people are bitching about how much the bars pay. And I understand that. I mean, if you're in a position to sell tickets, then go do that. But I know I'm moving way ahead of, I'm talking about other stuff. But what I want to say is I'm thankful for what Austin has to offer for a musician. Because you can never be, if you're good and you're talented, you can never be out of work. You just have to, pick up and get the gig, and you just show up. Pretty much half the time showing up and having your gear and plugging your gear in and it works. That's 90% of the job anyway, because half of the musicians are so flaky, they never show up or they're late, so you get hired.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
So with your band, the Genders, are you like the main member? Is it mainly your band?
Right now I am, because what happened is I was the one who moved. Nobody else moved. So I moved with the intention of finding new band members. And I can say that my main band member is here in Austin is Paul Vazelis, the drummer. But we haven't been working together for the past 3 or 4 months because of the COVID thing. And he was right. He had a higher standard of, hey man, I don't need this. I don't need a gig. I'm going to stay home, work on my deck, work on my house. And he was right, because a lot of us musicians got it. We did get infected. Most of us are fine. A couple are dead. I'm not going to make light of it. It's real. And once again, I don't want to mention names because it's not the time and the place. Whoever.
You know anyone that died that was, under 60 years old?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How old were they?
In their 50s.
In their 50s?
Yeah.
Still not that old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no joke. I mean, it's got a very low death rate when you really look at it, but so many people get it is the problem.
Exactly. And especially if you look at the hot spots. So, and I'm not trying to preach, and I'm not saying anything that I'm just saying this is my experience. I was working for a whole month in some of the hot spots. I would pick the shows to be outdoorsy, kind of, like the rooftop at Buckshot was my favorite place to play. We were right on that rooftop. That's 6th Street and Natchez. I think, is that how you pronounce it? Natchez or
I call it Nueces.
Nueces.
Yeah. I don't know how it's really pronounced.
Yeah,
but,
right across the street from the arch, the homeless thing, and I think the first night of the big BLM. Like, it wasn't a riot, it was a march, but the police made it into a confrontation. It was pandemonium. We were right there on the rooftop playing, and we were smelling the burnt stuff, and I was going like, what's burning? And Charlie, the drummer who was playing with me that night, he was going like, this is either a burnt car or a burnt dumpster, because it sounds like metal is burning. So something is bad. We should stop right now. So we finished the song, and it was too late. By the time we stopped, we couldn't unload out.
You were stuck there.
We were stuck there. And I was getting full PTSD on it. It's like, all right, shots fired. I'm going to find a place to duck and cover.
Yeah, because you were in the Israeli military.
You know what? I was probably the least combat. I was exposed to the least combat of probably 99.9% of Israeli combatants, but it was enough for me because I'm a sissy. It was enough for me. Full PTSD, hid behind they had a whole hall of, it's a big club. They had a hall full of slot machines. I was hiding behind a slot machine. Just,
You just at this bar hiding behind a slot machine.
And then when I came out, there's a long bar, and the bartender who's tending bar, he came out as well. So it's like, all right, I'm not the only chicken here. There's another guy chicken with me, so I'm fine. It was scary, I've been through things, but there's something about. Here's a bad thing about America, right? I'm scared of American police. I'm scared because they're scared. That's why I'm scared.
Yeah.
When they're scared, that means they're gonna have that. The finger is right by the trigger and it's kind of shaking. I don't want nobody to be scared, because when somebody's scared and they have a gun, that gun gets shot.
Agreed.
So that's why I'm a little bit, that's my only problem, is I'm scared of the police. And they have a reason to be scared, but I have more of a reason because I'm unarmed.
Mm-hmm.
See what I mean?
Yeah. But going on what you're saying, you're playing this rooftop. Was that at night or during the day?
That was, it started kind of 7-ish and it went all the way till the night. So yeah, when that happened, it was night already.
So I haven't fact checked this, but Joe Rogan has said more than once on his podcast that they're saying now that COVID almost immediately dies in UV light. So if you're out during the day in the sun and you're breathing it out, like, it's dead,
Most of that night was twilight. Mm-hmm.
So what you got to worry about is nighttime and indoors, and even artificial UV light.
I have a suspicion that when I got COVID, it was out in Fredericksburg, because that was pandemonium. People were not observing any. It was fun, right? Everybody was dancing. The place was packed. But if I have one place where I played and probably shouldn't have, that was it.
Was it a smaller
and it wasn't with
indoor?
The Genders. I was playing bass. I'm a pretty decent bass player, and anytime I play with a huge rock star by the name of Danny B. Harvey. He's by far the best musician I've ever played with, and I have no problem saying that. Danny, shout out to you. He's the leader of the band called Headcat, which featured as vocalist, it featured Lemmy from Motorhead. So that's not his only claim to fame, but that's his biggest. If he needs to drop one name, it's I had a band with Lemmy for 5 years. Lemmy and Slim Jim Phantom, who was the drummer for Stray Cats, and Danny B. Harvey. So I'm the bass player for Danny for when he hires me. I don't know. When he decides to call me up. And we went down to Fredericksburg, and that night, I hope Danny didn't get it, but he didn't. I guess, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. Maybe that's kind of why maybe that's not when I got it. I don't know.
Or it just could be one of those things. Maybe, some people, they come in contact with it and they don't get it. Their immune system fights it off. Some people get it. They get the antibodies and they have it, but they don't know it. But you don't have some people get it without getting the antibody, without antibodies being produced. Cause your first layer of defense, you won't even have antibodies. You'll just kind of reject it.
Right.
But if it gets in you and and you produce antibodies and you get rid of it, you still might not have symptoms, but then other people, they have symptoms.
It's all, in 2 years we'll know more, but cause I never got it, but
you never got symptoms.
I never got sick, but I'm sure that, when I transferred it to my beautiful wife, she never went out of the house. She was completely quarantining.
How sick did she get?
She got pretty sick, but not, in hindsight, it wasn't more than any big, bad flu.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we got scared,
Of course.
And it was worse than a flu because it knocks you out for a while. Excuse me.
Knocks you out in what way?
In terms of just energy wise, you're she was bedridden for a whole 3 weeks. She
Damn.
couldn't do anything. So, but otherwise, it's not. Let's not talk about that. What do we know? We're not.
Yeah.
We don't know nothing.
So how does your wife feel? You were a musician ever since y'all met, right?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. She's cool with, your music career and going on tour.
This is the second marriage, so
Mm-hmm.
I think I did it right this time. This is who it is. This is what it is. This is the deal. And yeah. And I'm older, I'm not much of a troublemaker as I used to be.
More tame.
Yeah, I'm way tamer. I'm as tame as, any rocker has any business being. Or tamer. I should probably tame down the tame.
So what are some hard parts about holding a band together and managing members? And like you've on this journey of transitioning through this band, you've lost members, you've gained members.
What's really hard, let's talk about two different periods in the band's existence. The first period was the constant touring. It's really hard to constantly tour. And the people who quit after a tour, I totally get it.
It's just too much for them. It's just so long. It's like
the life on the road is hard to begin with, but then the personal tensions are always there, and there's always somebody who's going to be the brunt of the tension.
There's that asshole.
Well, he might be the asshole, or maybe somebody else is the asshole to him, and then everybody is an asshole to them. And I was the brunt. I had my share of being the brunt.
You were the drama queen?
No, I was the one who people were a dick towards for my share, but I was a dick to others as well. And you got to be. When you go on the road and you're a band, there's anybody who tells you when we went on the road and we slept in the van, or we slept on floors, and we played a different town every night, and we drove for 8 hours every day, but we were fine. We never, got in fights, and nobody wanted to quit the band. They're lying. That never happened to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You always get in fights. You always try to, work it out when you get to the show and you play, and people get drunk to, block out the tension, and people will be offered drugs and accept them to block out the tension, or even just to, to have a good time, which, it's not fun. Touring is not fun. The fun part is playing the show, and maybe a couple of hours later being at an after party, and then passing out. And then the next day, it's Groundhog Day. You're back to the same, all right, get in the van. We're doing the same thing, but we're going to a different town. It's not easy. So I get people dropping off left and right, and even not, like, those are not the funny stories.
Yeah. Well, what are some funny road stories?
Well, I had a guy, I'm not naming names, but he knows who he is. I had a guy, it's funny to me. It was not funny to them. He fell down two stories of stairs in Chicago. It was at the Cobra Lounge, great venue. And they put us up in the venue. So when we get to the venue, we're playing the show, we can go upstairs, shower, put
That's
our
awesome.
stuff down, go do the show, and then go upstairs, and there's a case of PBR waiting and a bunch of weed.
A bunch of weed too.
And, treated like a rock star. No green M&Ms, no M&Ms at all. But yeah, and they feed you, they get you pizza, and so, and this guy's the bass player on that tour, and he just falls down a double flight of stairs and breaks his leg. And we got to go to the next town. It's funny now. It wasn't funny at the time. He didn't know it was broken. All right, let's get in the van and drive to the next town and see what happens.
Broken?
Well, it was I didn't know.
Yeah.
But he said, yeah, I can kind of, waddle through. We thought it was maybe a sprain or
Yeah.
soldier through it. Let's see what happens. We're all ex-military. We're all veterans. We can do this. We don't get to the place. Sorry. We get halfway. Somebody realizes that they left their passport under their bed where we were staying. So we got to go back, get their passport. And I'm going like, why would you take your passport out of your shit and put under? I didn't want it to get stolen. So we had to go back, and then we're late to the gig, but barely. Like we made it to the gig, and I go to sleep, and in the middle of the night, the guy goes, he knocks on my door. We had like separate accommodations that night. I'm not gonna get into why or how, but sometimes you luck out. And he goes like, man, you got to take me to the hospital. That's it. For the rest of the tour, I'm gonna show you. He was sitting on a chair with his foot up for the rest of the tour playing bass for 10 more gigs. And I have the footage to prove it.
That's funny, man. At least he still played the 10 more gigs.
He had to. What are you gonna do, man?
Yeah. He wanted to get paid.
He was
for
a trooper.
Yeah.
It was hell for him, but he was a trooper, and it was hell for us too. I mean, we were used to just rocking out. From that point on, poor guy, man. It was so hard for him. He was not having a good time from that point on. So
Yeah, I mean,
but it's a funny story, man.
Yeah.
Guy drops out on it's a Spinal Tap type funny story. It's tragically funny.
How did he fall down these stairs? Do you know?
I don't know.
Was he fucked up?
No, he wasn't.
No.
He was just clumsy.
That's worse.
Shit happens.
Yeah. I'm gonna grab another drink real quick.
All right.
Well, do you have any other funny stories about being on tour?
So I just remembered that I wanted to tell you this one. This is my Cosmic Austin story, and it involves how we I think this is our first night in Austin ever, and we were playing Trophies Bar and Grill, which is now Sea Boys, and we're just doing the show, and this cute girl comes up to me, and she just bought a CD, and she wants everybody to sign the CD. Not just one cute girl. I mean, there's multiple cute girls asking me to do that, but this specific one was especially cute. And my recollection is that I signed the CD, but
Well, you might have signed her tits.
no. There was no tits involved in this
kidding.
story. And then flash forward about 10 years. I'm exaggerating, but maybe 4 years. And I'm at the bar where my current wife, but then future wife, was the bartender. And I'm just hanging out, we were already kind of dating or whatever you want to call it. And she goes, and my best friend's coming tonight. She's like, she's my sister. She didn't introduce her as my best friend. She introduced her as her sister. And she and this girl comes in. She kind of looks like, I yell at my current wife, then future wife. And she's introduced to me, and she looks at me, and I look at her, and she goes like, I know you. You're the dude from the band in Austin. This is one in a million. And she goes, yeah, you never signed my CD. And she's my wife's best friend. I didn't even, that's the first time I was introduced to her. Turns out she was going to UT at the time. And I think she just read in the local newspaper that this Israeli band, the Genders, are coming to town and they're going to play a show. And she just randomly went, because that's how it used to be back in the day. It was like if a band was coming into town, people knew about it. It was a small town mentality. And so she came and she bought all the merch. And apparently I never signed the CD. So I'm in her black book. And now she's living in California, has a beautiful family, and we're still like great friends and everything. But that's that one in a million story that I keep coming back to. about the first time I played Austin. It's like it's a family story now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not funny. I promised you funny stories. It's not funny.
I mean, it's a good story though.
But it's magical,
Yeah,
when you suddenly see somebody and they go like, "Hey, I know who you are. You're that dude from that band and you never signed my CD." At least I wasn't being inappropriate that night. There's a lot of nights where I was probably being inappropriate here and there.
You're on your best behavior that night.
I honestly don't remember. And that's when we were introduced to Lone Stars. I wish I had Lone Star now, because that's what Sea Boys, I want to say, but it's Trophies Bar. They also gave you a case of Lone Star, or was it PPR? No, that was the other place. I have all my stories mixed up, but that was definitely an Austin story.
So what are your other favorite places to play at here in Austin?
That's a good question. My favorite places to play at in Austin are the ones that I haven't played yet.
Oh, really?
But one of them, one of my favorite places to play that I have played, but only once, and then COVID came, and I want to come back to play. I got to shout out Kick Butt Coffee. I played there a couple of times with other bands, but my first time with the Genders was my last time because it was just about when the whole thing started. We were opening up for a Japanese band who were on tour, and nobody showed up because it was just hitting the news that there's this, killer new virus. This was February.
Mm-hmm.
And they're from Japan. I think nobody wanted to go to their show either.
Yeah.
People are scared. It doesn't matter. That's one of my favorite places. You show up, you just play, and the sound is phenomenal. It's like a small place. It's another thing I love about Austin is that venues take their sound so seriously. You just show up, you set up, sound guy has an iPad, and he just dials it in. It takes him about 10 minutes, and you're playing, and it sounds like a stadium.
That's awesome.
Coming out of your monitors, you're going like, holy shit, that's what we sound like?
We sound this good? Whoa. You ever played at Dirty Dogs?
Yes.
I
That's
like Dirty
another
Dogs.
one that I like to play. We played there a couple of times. I played there a couple of times before. Here's this thing that I didn't clarify. I only reformed the Genders in Austin after I felt like I got this, because I was playing bass for a couple of people and guitar for a couple of people as a sideman or a side person up until about, I think it was South by of 2018 is when the Genders started, because during South by I got all these offers. Hey, do this. Hey, we want the Genders for that. The Genders didn't. It's a kind of well-known name, and people knew that I was in town. So I reformed it with J.D. Seguin and Patrick Altmaier, I want to say. And Patrick's out of town already. He joined the Navy, I think, and he's like a band drummer in the Navy now. Or is it the Marines? I think it's the Navy. JD is still around, and he's still one of the bass players rotated in the band. But that's when we started to play as the Genders during South by. And then from that point on, I kind of morphed into doing more of that because I was getting more and more offers, and the money was okay. And I felt like, I could do the same thing. I could play our material from 4 albums and then put some covers in the mix and do 3-4 hour sets anywhere I want as the one band. You can go out of town and do these bigger money gigs that, kind of roadhouses and other types of venues. And you could do the 6th Street thing, and you could do anything you want. It's a versatile band because it's got so much material to work with.
So I want to ask, where does most money come from? Is it from doing gigs, or is it some merch? Mostly gigs, some merch.
It used to be the gigs themselves.
Mostly gigs themselves is the primary.
Well, when we were touring, it would be 50-50 merch and the guarantee that you got.
Mm-hmm.
There was no tips. I didn't even put out a tip jar. And you know what? Nowadays, I'm thinking I would rather sell merch than just get money for nothing. You know, if you want to tip me, but if you give me $5, here's a CD. You know,
Yeah.
do whatever you want with it. Give it to your grandpa. He still uses that. Give it to your grandma. CDs is something, you know, you can give me $20. Here's a shirt. You know, like give people something to. It's memorabilia nowadays. It's more of that. It's like, hey, I was at that show, and it's a conversation piece. When people walk around with the Genders T-shirts, it's like, what's that? And you go, oh, that's a band. Great. I just, you know, free promotion.
Yeah, for sure.
But that was back on the tours. It was merch and ticket sales or a guarantee. I usually would negotiate some kind of guarantee because, you know, and
what exactly does that mean?
it means that they have to pay you a set amount, even if it's at a loss ticket-wise, if they didn't sell out the place or whatever.
Gotcha.
And usually what would happen was the other bands that would host the night would not want to get paid. And that's something that I would do if I host a night. If I host a night in Austin and somebody's coming in from out of town, I'm not taking any money. You're the band that's paying, you know, you need gas money. And so that was like, it's an unwritten law between touring bands. And that goes all the way up to, like, I met the guys in, what's the name of this band? Oh, I'm blanking out. This is a punk band. See, I promise you no dead air, but I got dead air now because I can't remember this band's name. They were playing in Dallas. The place is packed. It's a big place. Monkey something, Brass Monkey or...
Oh, I've been there. Yeah.
What's the name of that place?
It's a big place. It's something
huge.
Monkey. Like
Yeah.
I almost want to look it up, but
it's a 5,000 capacity venue, and they sold it all out.
It's huge, yeah.
And I'm friends with the opening band, and I get comped a ticket, and it's late, and I need a place to stay for the night because, you know, I had a few beers and I didn't realize that it's like I don't want to risk, you know, driving home. So I asked my friend's band, where are you guys staying? You know, can you put me up? Me, who's not even in a band that night. I'm in a band, but I'm not playing. And they said, no, that's the code, man. Somebody's going to set you up with a place to stay. It's a code. You set somebody up with a place to stay, and if there's not enough money, you give it to the touring band. So that's how we made by when we were touring. Now in Austin, you put out a tip jar, and you're hard pressed to sell any merch because they're not really interested. And this is like it's a Murphy's Law. I would stop bringing the merch out. And that was the night when somebody says, hey, you got T-shirts, you got CDs. We got like $200 to splurge on you. And I had nothing that night.
That's ridiculous.
So once in a blue moon, people want merch, but usually this type of, and there's different types of gigs. You know, when we had a Wednesday night at Maggie Mae's. It's 6th Street, but it's a live
spot.
music venue.
I've been there, yeah.
There's 2 live music venues on 6th Street that are real live music venues, and one is Maggie Mae's, and the other is Friends Bar, and those were our residencies, Wednesdays and Thursdays, because that's a real live venue. There's no other entertainment. There's a good stage and a good PA and a lighting rig, and you can put on your show. You can play what you want to play. And of course, you know, when it's a Friday night on Rot Rally, you know, with bikers. So you give them Highway to Hell, or you're going to get hell. You give them, they don't ask for it. I mean, that's one of the things that makes the Genders so quote unquote successful in Austin is that we don't consider playing, you know, classic rock cover songs as cheesy. That's what I grew up on. That's what the Genders is all about. It's a classic rock band. That's what I like. I'll play AC/DC, and I'll play Tom Petty, and I'll play Black Sabbath, and I'll play Deep Purple, and I'll play Fleetwood Mac, and those are the bands that I like.
Oh yeah.
You know, I grew up on that. I like to play that because it makes me feel good, not because it's what the audience wants. And if they want it too, that's a win-win, because they see us playing it and having a blast, and they tip us more. So everybody wins, and then the next song is going to be one of mine, and they don't even know. They think, oh, that's an obscure AC/DC song, or oh, I've never heard that Rolling Stones song. That's probably one of those hidden tracks that they never released off of Goat's Head Soup. But no, it's one of ours.
Yeah.
Because I'm a ripoff, and I'm a proud ripoff. I rip off every song that I ever written is a ripoff of a classic rock, like 3 or 4 other classic rock tunes.
Well, everybody's inspired by somebody, and then in really what your style or anybody's style is what they like in combination. Like if you like these 3 bands, you smash that together into your preference, and that's your music.
It's the literal meaning of the word generic is that it belongs to a genre. I'm proud to be generic, and my genre is rock and roll. I just made that up. Thank you for this podcast, because I would never have thought of that. I'm proud to be generic. My genre is rock and roll. I mean, it has to be generic.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, how can you make it? It's not going to sound like rock and roll.
Yeah. All right. So we're over an hour.
Awesome.
One more thing I want to ask you before you can say whatever you want after is just kind of like, how you feel about kind of where you're going to go from here. You're comfortable right now. You're able to, pay for your house and all this stuff. But, what do you?
No, I'm not comfortable. I don't want to be comfortable, but I'd rather not be uncomfortable because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not comfortable, but I'm not scared for the next month or 2.
Mm-hmm.
I am working on other things. One of them is, I don't know if it's not a secret, but it's not something official yet. I'm working on an album by another artist that I'm going to produce, and I'm writing songs with them. So I'm not going to name names, but I'm just saying I'm doing that, and I've already done that with a few people. So that further down the line, I'm probably going to do more of that. Oops.
You're good.
Third one's a charm.
So you're doing that's for some extra income. It's doing some
I
production.
have to. You got to diversify. So I'm pivoting for all
hold
kinds
on.
of other things.
Did you produce the Genders albums?
Not all of them, but I'm a co-producer in all of them.
So you have some production skills.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can name drop Darius Jackson, who I mixed and mastered his previous album, and maybe if he wants, going to do his next one that he's crowdfunding right now. Crowdsourcing, how do you call it?
I think it's crowdfunding.
Yeah. So Darius Jackson is a great guitar player and a singer, and all-around musician. He's one of the most talented people in town. I don't even feel like I'm shouting him out. It's just the truth. I was very lucky to not only play as his backup musician, as a bass player, but also have him play with the Genders as a guest guitarist and vocalist. And we did New Year's together. He's an incredible musician. He's out in Seattle now. I hope he comes back. But even if he doesn't, I'll mix his album. I mean, anytime he wants anything done. I met a lot of great musicians in this town. There's the level of talent is so off the charts, and young people in their 20s and early 30s who are true to the same music that I like, music that I grew up on. It's, you don't take that for granted. The music that you love, it gets old as you get old. And if young people still like it, it says something about, all right, I can keep doing what I love. I don't need to change the genre.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, like it's kind of like this music is timeless. Even newer generations enjoy it. So I don't need to, music hasn't changed so much to where this isn't relevant anymore. Like, this is my taste, and even people that are younger, that's still their taste. You
Yeah.
know?
And not only do they enjoy it, but not having been brought up in that era, because I was brought up in the golden era of rock music.
Yeah.
In the 70s and in the 80s. It wasn't the golden era, but it was still an era.
Yeah.
In the 90s, which was a golden era of some kind of genres of rock music, like what they call grunge music, or maybe
like freak
alternative music.
Yeah, like Korn, Tool, a lot of
good music in the 90s.
Yeah.
That is non-existent nowadays. But it is existent. It's just not as mainstream as it was.
Yeah.
I mean, Tool was a mainstream band at the time.
It's not at all now. Even
Not
though
at
they
all
dropped
now.
a new album, they're still not mainstream.
And I know you're a huge Tool fan. I'm gonna say, you know, they were one of the most interesting bands that came out when I was starting out as a professional musician in my late teens. But they were accepted as like, this is going to be as big as Metallica if they just, you know, go the course.
Mhm.
But it didn't pan out that way.
Their songs are too long for them to
It's not because of them. There's only room for one Metallica. They're the only band that's still Metallica.
Yeah, yeah.
There's not enough room for metal, alternative, rock, but it doesn't need that much room.
Mhm.
You know, I will be fine as long as I have a few people in the audience that really dig what I have to do, what I have to say. And I'll be fine if there's only like a few hundred CDs sold. Or look at our Spotify. Let me shout out a couple of things that we do in conclusion, because if you look at our Spotify, we have like a few thousand Spotify followers, and that's not a huge amount, but it's uncanny for bands that start out now. They go like, how am I going to get to 3,000 followers on Spotify? You just do it. Just keep doing it and you'll get it. It took us 15 years. It'll take you maybe even more now, because the arc is like, it's harder now. But and we just started our Bandcamp. Go look for the Genders on Bandcamp. There's another band called the Genders. They're from El Paso. I don't know if they're still around. That's a small world, right? The two bands called the Genders are both in Texas, in the whole world.
Yeah.
There's a band from Portland called Genders without the the.
Mhm.
They're actually two guys and two girls, or two men and two women, or whatever they identify
I feel like people
as.
Googled the Gingers Austin, like it came up for me. So, I mean,
If you Google the Genders Austin, that'll be it, or the Genders Band.
Mhm.
But the Genders will give you a whole bunch of gender studies, like the spectrum of genders.
yeah.
And that's the weird thing. Here's another thing I want to say about the name. People don't get why the band is called the Genders. It's like, hey man, there's nothing like gender fluid about you guys. You're all macho. And obviously, I'm not macho at all because I do that. And what I meant by naming the band the Genders in 2003 was that rock and roll in itself is gender fluid, because of Iggy and Bowie and because back in those days there was no talk about gender, and there was not even talk about homosexuality. That was not a thing. Everybody was quote unquote normal, and everybody who wasn't was in the closet. And so that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a cool name for a rock and roll band. And everybody got it in 2004. Nowadays, it's like, what do you guys like? What does that mean?
Yeah,
the genders.
yeah.
People don't get it nowadays because now it's a hot issue.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, it was a fringe issue.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was talking about identifying female or identifying male or being stuck in a body that doesn't belong to you. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying that there's freedom in breaking out of that, inspired by somebody that I work with who used to be in the New York Dolls. This is my first exposure to playing with a legend. Was playing with a guy who played with a guy who was in the New York Dolls. And he was in a band called the Sato Sluts on Smack.
The Sato Sluts on Smack? Fuck
So
yeah.
Google that. Back in New York in 1998, I was in an incarnation of the Sato Sluts on Smack with a dude named Peter Gertz, who played with Rick Rivets, who I played with as well. Rick Rivets was the original guitar player for the New York Dolls. Something along the lines. And they would wear drag, and they were not at all trans people in their day-to-day life, but they needed that. Maybe nowadays they would want to be trans, but they got their kicks doing the rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
It's an outlet to explore fluidity without having to go the whole 9 yards. You know what I'm saying? Rock and roll is a transformation. Rock and roll is an exploration of self. If you want to tie it in with Satanism, be my guest. I mean, you wouldn't be the first person to say rock and roll is the devil's music. The blues is the devil's music way before that. And before that, jazz was the devil's music. So I would say that rock and roll can be the not even the music, but the phenomena that can set you free. And one of the ways that it can set you free is with your gender. As a rock and roll star, Robert Plant would allow himself to sing and do that little thing with his hand, which he would never get away with doing that, I don't know, day to day.
Yeah, that's not a normal thing to do.
And he's the straightest guy alive. He's like, but he didn't look it because he was exploring his femininity. And that's a legit thing to do as a male. A cis male can explore their femininity as well. Even if you don't have, like, maybe 99% of your fantasies are about women, but 1% is about men. What are you? Are you gay? I don't know. Do whatever you want. So that's why the genders. The genders is something to explore in rock and roll. For me, personally. That's why I always had a fantasy of being like that guy. What's the name of that movie? He's a transvestite from Transylvania. Oh,
is he also a vampire?
Of course.
But I think that's a good place.
Goodness.
I think it's a good place to end it. Do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. And that is the law. Do as thou wilt. That's the essence of Satanism. I just went all satanic on it.
Well, Amir, thanks for coming on, man. We got
Appreciate
a
it.
Satanist from Jerusalem. There's nobody like him.
Respect. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. I thought it was great, man. I loved it.
I loved it too.
Who's a freak? Not me.